Greetings, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I have drifted into the Underworld. The Star Wars Underworld. I have a bad feeling about this.
Here we go. We must go to the lower levels. The Underworld.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
You're after something.
Ben.
Since I've started the Underworld, I've met so many great friends.
Chris.
I grew up in the 1990s, and mall packaging is nostalgic for me.
Dominic.
What I love most about Star Wars is that it's fun and it's all-round good times.
So, this is where the fun begins.
May the Force be with us.
This thing really moves!
Whoa! I like this!
I can't believe you came all this way to see me.
Why am I not in the intro? I gotta come up with a snappy line.
What's up, Star Wars fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Star Wars Underworld podcast. We are your source for the latest breaking Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion each and every week. And this week on the show, we are going to be reviewing the newest LEGO Star Wars special, Rebuild the Galaxy, plus some exciting updates about Skeleton Crew and the return of the Bad Batch, and so much more. And as always, we'll be answering your questions at the end of the show in another segment of hashtag Ask the SWU. All this and much more on the show. My name is Chris, and joining me, it is my good friend, Mr. Dominic Jones.
Hello, Chris. Hello, Ben. Hello, everybody. Yes, very excited to talk about Rebuild the Galaxy. I always love the LEGO specials, and this one, I think, lived up to the hype. Very excited to talk about it. And in the spirit of Rebuild the Galaxy, we've all roughly changed places the way from what we normally do, the same way the characters did. So Ben spent the whole day thinking about hockey. I spent the whole day stuck in LA traffic, and Chris served people in a barbecue restaurant. So that's basically what we did. And Hannah, we don't know where she is. So I think she's like Yoda and Princess Leia in the special. It turns out fine no matter what. She's just being Hannah. But yeah, very excited to break down the episode. Very excited to get into all the news. It's going to be a great show.
Heck yes. No, I would definitely be down to serve barbecue. Like that sounds like a good time.
And I like hockey. Yeah.
I don't like being in traffic. This is a real hot take of mine. It's not fun. I don't enjoy it.
So I guess I'm the one that wins in this switcheroo.
Yeah. I think you got the best version of that.
Heck yes. That other voice you hear and face you see. It's Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
Arr, ye mateys, I want to wish you a very happy talk like a pirate day. Arr. Well, Ben, we'll have a great show. How long before this try to keep this up for the whole podcast? It's gonna get real quick.
Yeah. How long can we last? Well, in honor of Talk Like a Pirate Day, let's rank the best Star Wars pirates. I think we can all just agree default number one, Hondo Ohnaka. I think that would just start there, and you go from and you work downward. So probably what's his face? Seaweed Man, Kale McCarr. What's his name from Mandalorian? He's got to be on there.
Gorian Shard.
Him, yep. He's got to be on there. Lando calls Han a pirate, so we can throw Han on there.
Yeah.
There's three. Maybe we should come up with four that aren't Hondo, and then we can do another one of our classic Twitter/Threads polls to see who comes out. Now, there were a bunch of pirates in Resistance. What were some of the pirates' names in Resistance?
Oh God, you had to ask.
Yeah.
Matthew, are you paying attention? This is something
Somebody
you need
help
to
us
add
here.
to the trivia because Ben doesn't know.
Yeah, right, man. We got to make sure
you found my blind spot.
All the
pirates.
All the questions are about Star Wars Resistance pirates. So we'll get one of them in there. So Han, Gorian Shard, someone from the let's see. There was one character she became like a main character. What was her name? So long since we watched Sonara. Let's go with Sonara. We'll call her a pirate. So, all right. So Gorian Shard, Sonara, Han Solo, or I don't know who's another pirate in
Also,
Star Wars?
shout out to Captain Kragan Gore, who
Mm.
was one of the pirate leaders of Star Wars Resistance.
Okay. All right. All right.
Totally
let's go
didn't just look that up.
Any of that, you know, when you Google Star Wars Resistance pirates, one of the first ones, something else that comes up is the whatchamacallit, what's his character? The Crimson Corsair. He's
yeah,
he's a pirate. All right. So Crimson Corsair, Han,
you were getting somewhere.
Sonara, or Gorian Shard. There's your 4 choices. Everyone vote on that. Ben is going to make the Twitter poll right now.
Wait, say that again. I wasn't paying attention.
So, who is your second favorite Star Wars pirate? Because Hondo is obviously number 1. So the options are Gorian Shard, Han Solo. I feel like we have a winner there. Sonara from Resistance, and the Crimson Corsair. I think he was a pirate. He seemed like a
aye, Captain.
Yeah. I think we'll go with that. He had another name, but let's just go with Crimson Corsair. Everyone knows that. All right, there's
look, this I did not look this up. His real name is Sidon Athano.
All right. Yeah. You won trivia 3 years in a row. We get it. Ben's Connection Corner. Yar. All right. I think that's a great way to start the show. With some nonsensical banter about pirates. All right, Chris, let's plug some things and then we'll talk about Lego.
All right, so if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you punch that subscribe button. Chewy, if you're watching live, you can super chat with us. Otherwise, you can become a channel member and support us that way. Thanks to everybody who is watching or listening, really just listening on the podcast apps. You can actually watch podcasts on podcast apps now, which kind of blows my mind that this is a thing. Like most of the Spotify podcasts that I listen to now, I watch, and I just watch them because they're only on Spotify. Otherwise, I would be watching them on something like YouTube or Facebook. So we're just audio only for the moment on the podcast apps, but you can find us there. So make sure you subscribe to those and leave a review if that's how you enjoy our show. We have a Discord. You can join the Star Wars Underworld Network Discord for game nights and watch parties and lots of fun discussions about Star Wars and beyond. The link is in the description. You can also follow us on Instagram's exciting new text app, Threads. That is how it was. I had this little thing pop up on Instagram for me today when I was on Instagram saying, check out Instagram's new app. And I'm like, wait, I don't usually think of it that way, as either new or Instagrams, but I guess it tracks since Instagram and Facebook are technically the same thing.
Yeah.
So we are there. We are hip to the new apps.
We're not square, we're hip.
Yes. At the SWU on Threads, and check out all the other shows we have on our podcast network. They include the Raeside, which is over on its own channel, as well as Iron Cannon, Tales from Beyond the Galaxy, Tractor Beam, and more.
All right. So let's get into things. We'll talk about Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy, the new 4-part miniseries animated on Disney Plus. We've all watched it. We've all seen it. Let's go around the table and give some initial impressions. And Ben, I'm going to throw it to you first.
Yeah. So, I mean, this show was just a heck of a lot of fun. Like that's kind of my takeaway. Just like it was so much fun to watch this show. And like it had a lot of moments, and it kind of caught me off guard with how like sincere it was. Like obviously it's got the Lego humor, it's that same style. If you're going in like, oh, I've seen the other Lego specials, I've played the games, it's kind of that tone. But it's surprisingly sincere, surprisingly very emotional at times, and also very funny, also some great action in it. Like it's got a bag. I mean, this thing is basically, they're calling it a series, and maybe I'll get into it later. Like that, my only gripe with the show is like, is its presentation of just like, it's a series, but they dropped it all at once. So it's kind of a 90-minute movie. And they maybe could have just like edited it into a 90-minute movie instead, because it kind of plays well like that. I don't know what they're going for here, but like played all together, it's great. And it's well paced and it's a lot of fun. And I think, it fits, it plays like a Star Wars movie, just in the same vein of the Lego tone that we're used to. And yeah, it's really, I think, obviously kids are going to love it, but I think a lot of adults, if you've been around the block with these Lego stuff, if you've enjoyed this past stuff, I can't imagine you not enjoying this.
Chris, what did you think?
Yeah, I agree. I thought this was really great. I definitely think there's been quite a few now Lego specials that have honestly been some of the best Star Wars content on Disney Plus. And I think there's just something, it's very interesting, because I think the reason why is Lego is allowed to do fan service in a way that all the other things are not. I think that's the big difference. Is I think a lot of other things on Disney Plus, they're either trying to be something completely different with Star Wars, or they're trying to be the same, but not like seem like it's the same. Like still seem like it's something new. Whereas with Lego being more of being a parody thing, they're allowed to just completely make things like that are for people who are fans of Star Wars. Clearly, these episodes here were not intended for people who have not seen Star Wars. Extremely clearly. It's definitely got more of the vibes of like the Phineas and Ferb or Family Guy parody specials. It's definitely got more of those vibes. And I feel like a lot of the Lego stuff really, really has had those types of vibes. Like the Lego Holiday Special or the Padawan Menace. It's kind of the same stuff with those. With that being said, I absolutely love it, because it provides something unique that we don't get a lot of, which is just like going overboard with references that you'd only get if you've seen everything and know everything inside and out. And I mean, you could have a counter of how many references per minute were in this to something else, and some of them were really, really deep and really, really hilarious. So I thought that the writing was just absolutely brilliant. It was clearly written by Star Wars fans for Star Wars fans. Just so many amazing references that I'm going to get into specifically as we talk about specific aspects of the special. And yeah, it's just got those Lego vibes. I mean, this was kind of almost, in a way, along with some of the other specials, the Star Wars Lego movie. Like we've gotten some Lego movies, we've gotten a Lego Batman movie, we haven't gotten a Lego Star Wars movie, but we almost have more Lego Star Wars content than anything else, because there's been so many of these specials, and this is, like we mentioned, almost a whole nother movie on top of everything else, with the amount of runtime in these 4 episodes. So yeah, I enjoyed it thoroughly. I thought it was brilliant. And I kind of hope that we get more.
Yeah, I'll start by saying I agree with what Ben said, that like they should have just called this a movie and stuck all the parts together. Like I think I don't quite understand why it needed to be broken up into 4 pieces, but that's neither here nor there. Well, actually,
it's broken up so you can rebuild it.
Because it's Lego. Yeah, there it is. I'm gonna watch it out of order, just in the spirit of the show. But I absolutely adored it as well. And there's been like an evolution of the Lego specials, right? Because like the first couple of ones with like the Padawan Menace or the Empire Strikes Out, like those were just like straight up like extended sketches almost. Like they were just about the jokes. They were just comedy. There was a little bit of plot there, but it was all in service of telling some really good jokes. And then it sort of evolved, and we had like the Yoda Chronicles and things like that, where they started to get more into wanting to tell like kind of longer form stories. And then you had like the Freemaker Adventures, which was like just another like Star Wars show. Like it was a little bit funnier. It was a little bit more based around jokes, but it was basically just a Lego Star Wars show that was, as serious as, Resistance or Rebels. Maybe not Rebels, but like Resistance in places. And then after that, like then there was there was a bit of a pause in the Lego Star Wars stuff. And I think they were reevaluating like how to best utilize the two brands and how to do like sort of interesting storytelling. And that's when we started to get the holiday specials, starting with the Christmas one and then the Halloween and the summer special. And I think they sort of tapped into something there of like that's where they figured out just the right balance between the sincerity and the humor and the jokes. And with this one, they're now not just relying on familiar characters like they did with the holiday specials, but now they've gone back to the idea of like the Freemaker Adventures where you have original characters, but they've found that tightrope. They found that balancing act where they can have an interesting, good, heartfelt story at their core, while also having the humor and the fun and just letting themselves be their own version of Star Wars. And in doing that, it feels really true to what Star Wars is, and sometimes feels more true to what Star Wars is than the things that feel they have to remain true to what Star Wars is. Like they, sometimes shows build a box around themselves going, this is what Star Wars is, and they don't want to get out of the box. And then Lego comes in and they're like, we'll take down the box and rebuild it into something else. And we look at it and go, oh yeah, that's Star Wars. That's it. And that's what Rebuild the Galaxy does so brilliantly well and so beautifully well. I still think the Christmas special is like the gold standard for these Lego things, and this one like comes close but still just a little shy. Like if the Christmas special is an A+, this is like a strong A-. But overall it's really really funny and amusing and everything that you want it to be. We'll talk about some story things in a minute, but really when you have something like this, you got to talk about the references, the jokes, the best moments. Chris, I'll go to you. What was your favorite like moment, your favorite reference, your favorite just sort of like the moment where you went, yes, this is fulfilling the potential of Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy?
It's so difficult because honestly, this was like every 40 seconds for me. I mean, I think, some of the moments that had me kind of freak out the most were like, oh my gosh, they went there. Definitely the Darth Jar Jar moment.
Yeah.
That was absolutely incredible, because that's great, because that's something that a lot of people are going to understand the deep reference there, but still it's something that's deeper than the canon. So I think that's kind of a brilliant choice, because a lot of the references here, you just need to know the Star Wars canon to know what's the joke is. Whereas this one, like, there's that fan theory that is one of the most popular fan theories. It's like almost like the emperor of fan theories, which is that Jar Jar is secretly a Sith Lord, and that he is the actual Phantom Menace. And of course, they referenced that specifically, saying he was the Phantom Menace in this show. So it was clear that it wasn't just, let's pick some random characters that would be funny to be Sith, which were the case with some of the other ones. Yeah. But let's pick this guy specifically because there is that incredible, really funny fan theory about him being a secret Sith. So yeah, Darth Jar Jar was a huge one to me. And honestly, to have Darth Nubs right next to him,
yeah,
like that was just really off the wall. I just loved the humor. And it's kind of funny because specifically, I feel like this show actually got the spirit of Lego, I think, even deeper than anything else. And that's because they approached it from the play side, almost more from the entertainment side. Like, I feel like a lot of Lego media is, let's tell a story with Legos. Let's do how we would normally write a film or a TV show or a short, but let's do it with Legos and include some like Lego specific references. Whereas this one very much felt like, okay, if you're going to play with Legos, what would it look like if that was then turned into CGI, turned into animation? Because you can just imagine that, you know, if you're playing with Legos, the whole point of the Lego system is to be able to mix and match and rebuild with everything you want, because it's a system. Everything fits together and can be rearranged in any way.
You're not supposed to craggle them together.
No. And that is exactly. And that is, you know, that is the spirit of Lego. That's what makes Lego brilliant. So they took the thing that makes Lego brilliant and put it together with what makes Star Wars brilliant. And that was amazing. And so to have this rebuild the galaxy concept of, we're going to do a kind of science fiction alternate universe like story, which we have seen before, but let's do it in a Lego way where everything can be recombined to the ways that Lego can be recombined. And then that changes the story to have, you know, a dark Falcon, and to have water on Tatooine, and to have, you know, all these characters scrambled. I mean, I'm pretty sure Maul was wearing like Lando from Solo, the Solo movie outfit.
Right.
Like all of these things. Like, you know, that's something that kids would do. That's something that kids do.
Oh yeah.
Do. So I think, that was absolutely brilliant. So there were so many references in here that got me, but just the whole concept of how to restructure things was brilliant.
Yeah, and you know, that's something people say a lot about, like when they're making a Star Wars show. I feel like Dave Filoni says it all the time. Jon Favreau says it all the time. It's like you're like it's like taking your toys and playing with them and creating and inventing new stories. And you know, the Mandalorian does that a lot. All of the shows do that to an extent. But this took it and cranked it up to 11, where, like you're saying, Chris, that's just basically the show. Is let's just take all the Lego pieces and do something silly with it and see where we wind up, while also having like a really like nice, good, strong story at its core. And the thing about Darth Jar Jar, right? And Jedi Bob is kind of this way too. Like if you know the lore, if you know the like fan theories and the fan culture around all that, like that stuff carries an extra weight. But I, you know, much in the same way that you have Darth Nubs and Darth Rose and Darth Kit Fisto and all those other Darths just stepping off the ship there, I feel like if they said Darth Jar Jar and you had no idea about that insane theory, you'd just be like, oh, that's funny, because it's funny. And then you know, they go all in on it for like an extended sequence later, what you're referencing, where he's like, Misa's always been the Phantom Menace. Like, it's so good. so good. Ben, what about you? What was your sort of favorite reference moment, joke, whatever it is in this?
I mean, I think you were just talking about it. I mean, I think Darth Jar Jar goes without saying. I think that's literally my only, if I had to come up with a complaint for this show, I would be like, Darth Jar Jar was underused. They underused Ahmed Best. They underused Ahmed Best going full Darth Jar Jar mode, because like I was like, oh, come on, you killed him that fast. Like he had like 2 good scenes and that was great. Like I would have loved him like have, you know, I would love him being the main villain. I appreciate like what they were doing with the 2 brothers. Of just like, this is a very compelling story, but Darth Jar Jar is entertaining as heck. And that Ahmed Best was chewing up every scene he was in, and I loved that. Just overall though, I liked not just the makeup of the Sith, all the Sith. I love the references. Like, well, this is a different universe, and there's not only 2 Sith anymore, there's lots of Sith. And I was like, okay, I see, I like that. And then going further to the Jedi Council, which is led by Sheev Palpatine, I guess Jedi Master Sheev Palpatine, but there's so many others in there. There's like, of course, Jabba's in there. You have white suited Vader, which is another deep cut reference. This thing that we fans have made fun of for years. I'm just like, oh, look at this, and it's played like the most sincere thing. I'm just like, yeah, it's good guy Vader, and you know, maybe he'll have a good relationship with his kids now, and like it's really funny. And then you've also got Jedi Janna, played by Naomi Aki, thrown in there. I'm just like, what is this? Like, this is so great. And then, obviously on the Sith side, you have Darth Nubs, you have Phil Lamar coming back to play Darth Kit Fisto. Like, just great.
Yeah. So good. The reveal of the Jedi Council and seeing that it was led by Palpatine, it took me like slightly longer than I think it should have to realize that that's what was happening. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, that's Sheev. Oh, okay, that's great. And then you go around the circle and there's Jabba and everybody there. Yeah, so funny. My favorite moment is in and around that. It's when they are leaving and somebody says, oh, where's Luke? Like, where's Luke? Where's Vader? Where are they? And I think Sig says, oh, I told him a little something about his family history, so they have some catching up to do. And they have Luke, Leia, and white suited Vader all standing around, and Vader goes, I'm your what? And I cackled when that happened. I cackled at that joke. I didn't think you could do a good I am your father joke anymore. Everybody's done it. And I didn't think anybody could do it better than Spaceballs with, I am your father's roommate's second cousin's whatever. Like, I didn't think you could top that. And they I don't know if they topped it, but they certainly got right next to it with that. It was very, very funny. And of course, the Landolorian at the very, very end. The perfect stinger.
I was not expecting a cliffhanger ending.
Well, and Ben, as we all know, whenever they introduce a beloved character in a final scene of a series, it means that we're automatically getting a second season, right?
We're gonna say that, yes.
Right?
Too soon, man.
Sorry, what's that? We have Leslie Headland on line 2. She's got something to say about that. Anyway, but the Landolorian, very, very funny. As if you could take the two of the most charming people in Star Wars, Billy D. Williams and Pedro Pascal, slam them into one and get the Landolorian. Pretty spectacular. Do want to mention the two brothers at the core of the story, Sig and Dev. I really, really liked this tale. I really, really liked it. It is it's a familiar story. Dev, wanting to leave home and go out and save the galaxy or find his place in the galaxy, and Sig being kind of content to just know the stories of the galaxy. I thought that was a really good starting place, and then where they went with it was really, really good. And there were points where, especially towards the end, I found myself going like, oh, I'm really invested. I really care about these characters. I went into this just wanting to laugh at Darth Jar Jar and Dude Luke. And instead I find myself going like, no, let's cut back to the brothers and see where we wind up with this. So I really, really dug this part of the story. What did you guys think of Sig and Dev?
Yeah, I mean, I think Gaiden Mazzarano and Tuna Revolori, like, they legitimately did great jobs as the characters. I think sometimes when you're getting like screen actors in to do like a voice role, sometimes it doesn't quite link up, but like they legitimately they carried the whole series, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I thought their story was really great, and I thought that it kind of had that central family drama Star Wars je ne sais quoi to it that like George Lucas brought to everything that he made. So I think from that perspective, that's almost what keeps it within the theme of Star Wars more than the million references to Star Wars. Like that actually makes it feel like Star Wars more than any of that, because it's that really core storytelling that is common to a lot of the classic Star Wars stories.
Absolutely. Let's also we'd be remiss if we didn't touch on Luke Skywalker, who we meet
Island Luke,
a very different Island Luke, we can say.
Yes.
Mark Hamill not missing a beat back as Luke Skywalker in Lego form. What did we think of this portrayal of Luke in an alternate universe?
This was so great. I love that he has like Japor snippet necklace, but it's almost kind of like in like an island style to it. Yeah, it's interesting. He's kind of like Luke and Anakin put together, because he's like a pod racer, and he's using the Force pod racing in a way that his dad did. And so it's an interesting mashup of things. So I think they did a really brilliant job, and Mark Hamill was fantastic as always. It's cool seeing Mark Hamill in a Star Wars voice acting role. Since he's done so much voice acting, but not as much with Star Wars. So it's cool to see him voice acting in Star Wars as Luke.
As Luke.
The character that made him a household name.
Yeah, because most of the time when it's like, oh, we need Luke Skywalker for this thing, this animated thing, or whatever else. For the few times we've got, things, or a video game or whatever else, we need young Luke. We don't need older Luke. And I don't think Mark Hamill, as talented as he is as a voice actor, I don't think he can do his younger self as convincingly these days. But what I like about this is, like, we've been talking perhaps ad nauseum about the idea of a Star Wars what if show. A what if this, what if that, answering these questions. I like that there's quite a few of those are in this show. Quite a few of those, like, for example, what if Luke just never left Tatooine and just stayed there and kind of became, made a lot of money doing pod racing like his dad. Like, that's an interesting idea. Obviously, it's played for kind of more comical effect, but it is this thing of just like, yeah, he never left Tatooine, and he never found out about Vader, and he never found out about Leia. And, like, he's kind of like he putting on this kind of Han Solo, I'm fine, I'm great. But then, he's not okay. And the emotional, the emotional undertones of the character, I think, are all there. It's great. And Mark Hamill, of course, plays it great.
Yeah. I like that. I like that he ultimately winds up helping them. I like that he winds up doing the right thing. I like the idea that Luke, in every galaxy, in every universe, in every variation, will ultimately wind up doing the right thing. That Luke's soul, for lack of a better word, remains intact, remains true, even if the situation around him is different, even where he never was asked to be the hero of the galaxy. Ultimately, his instincts will lead him to do the right thing. And so that even when, because, like, there's the thing where he's like, that money is Luke's money when he's talking about the pod race thing winning. So then later he's like, Luke's money is your money. Like, I like that he got to that point. And it was kind of the same way with Leia, that, Leia was just kind of the same in every universe. Her and Yoda are the two that just sort of remained consistent. And I hope that when we get a second season, I'm going to keep saying when, because that worked so well with the Acolyte, that when we get a second season, I hope that Han ultimately gets some sort of redemption, and that there's sort of a for at least for the main characters, there's something about them that carries across the different universes. Let me ask you guys this. What was the biggest, we talked about, like, favorite moments, we talked about some of the characters, some of the story. What was the biggest surprise for you in the special? Because we've seen a lot of stuff in the trailer, a lot of the the big moments. Darth Jar Jar was introduced in the trailer, Dude Luke, sort of the idea of the Empire and Rebellion, a lot of switching a lot of their technology and stuff. A lot of that was foreshadowed and previewed in the trailers. What was something that surprised you in this special?
Well, I didn't watch the trailer, so for me it was all surprising technically, because I actually went in really knowing little about this.
Did you know Darth Jar Jar was going to be in it?
I actually didn't.
Wow.
Like, I totally missed
that was
on
all over the place.
Yeah, no, somehow I was able to avoid all spoilers about this and all trailer and everything. So I went in completely not knowing not a single thing at all about this. So not the best person to ask and answer this question, since technically it was all surprising to me. Yeah, so pass.
Pass.
It's a very long pass.
Well, I'm look, here's another one for you. I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. I not only watched all the trailers, I waited several days after it was released and then stayed online like all the time like I normally do. So I knew all the spoilers. I knew about the Landalorian on top of that. So like there wasn't a lot of surprises. You know what? I'm gonna do a cop out here and I'm gonna circle back to something else. Is I was surprised by the sincerity of this and how emotional it was and how how invested I was in the brother's story. Like I really, because I didn't know. I think that's the least amount I knew. I knew it was like, oh, Gaten Mazzarano and Tony Revolori in this. Okay, whatever. Like I didn't know anything about their characters. I didn't do anything. So I didn't know anything about like the principal cast, which is weird. But like, the most was marketed was like, oh, Luke Skywalker's in this, and Darth Maul and Darth Jar Jar. Like that's great. I was surprised by like, okay, this isn't actually like I could see like a version of this being the plot of a Star Wars movie. Weirdly, like it's really feels like a Star Wars story. It feels like this was the thing. And I think it goes
Ben,
without saying.
This the starting premise from this could be the starting premise for the Rey movie. Here are two kids, two siblings on a backwater planet. One of them knows all the stories of Star Wars, and the other one desperately wants to leave. And lo and behold, they both have force powers. Guess who shows up? Rey Skywalker. She's going to train him. We go from there. Like that could easily be the premise for the new Jedi Order movie.
Right. Yeah. I think that speaks to the creativity behind these shows. And we've talked about this before. We talked about it with the holiday special, like how great that was. And realizing, man, the people that make these shows, they're not just taking it seriously. They really love Star Wars. They really, this is not, you hear the term cash grab. You hear the term lazy thrown around online. This is the opposite of that. These are people that are super passionate about Lego, but also super passionate about Star Wars, that know their stuff and really, really care about this stuff. And I really want to tell, at its core, a really solid, emotional, resonating story in the Star Wars universe, and then just kind of slapping the veneer and playing with the for lack of a better term, very punny here, the nuts and bolts and bricks of a Lego Star Wars story. So like I think that's what's really like ultimately like when you come into these and you're like, oh, it's gonna be fun and funny and all around good times, and then it turns into, wow, okay, I'm almost crying from this because it's actually legitimately affecting me.
Yeah. Okay. I guess that's an answer.
I did the best I could.
I was gonna say if Hannah was here, she'd have a real answer to that question. But no, that's a good point. It's a very fair point, Ben. Makes anything I'm gonna say sound really meaningless and pointless afterwards. But no, I was surprised that they committed to the idea that this is an entirely new galaxy, that there's no going back. That surprised me. That was a genuine surprise to me. And I like the idea that this now frees them up to do more in this timeline, do more stories over here. In a way, it's sort of reminiscent of Visions, in the sense that it's like, here is a separate universe almost that you can do Star Wars-esque stories in, characters with Jedi or stories with Jedi and the Force and Sith and Empire and all that stuff, but it doesn't have to play by the rules of the canon, quote unquote. All right, let's wind things down with our discussion of Rebuild the Galaxy. Go around the table one last time, give final thoughts and score out of 10 for Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy. Chris, why don't you start us off here?
I think one new character we haven't talked a lot about is the character of Servo, the sidekick of Gonk, right, who was given a voice. I thought that was a very well written.
Who voiced Servo?
This was Michael Cusack, I think.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Not familiar, but I should become familiar.
Yes. I know both those names, but not together. And so that's yeah. So no, I thought that character was really great, and I thought so I think the show is really good at having its references to things that in Star Wars and in fandom, combining with like new characters and new things that were very strong as well. I think there was a really funny moment as well when the Akbar clone troopers, and that's so funny. Where Jedi Bob goes to fight them, and he turns their weapons into little mouse droids. And I thought that was just a really, really, really kind of funny, like blink and you miss it moment. There was like so many of those. Like this is one of those things you couldn't like. You had to be paying attention because there was just so many little things. So yeah, so it was absolutely brilliant. I really hope that the fact that it's a series and not just a one-time special, and that there's a cliffhanger at the end, because like how could you not have the Mandalorian and Grogu, which is the next one of the next Star Wars movie potentially? But how can you not have that in a Lego special at this point? Like, I think that suggests that they're probably gonna make more episodes of this, or a second season of this, or however they want to call it. With that actual storyline, probably the time with the Mandalorian and Grogu releasing in theaters, most likely to capitalize off of that, like with the Mandalorian and evil dark side Grogu or whoever this character is. Yeah, I really hope we get more. So I'll give it a 10 out of 10. I could not imagine them doing a better job than this. I thought this is one of the best Star Wars specials. It's hard for me to rank them because they stretch now a very long period of time and kind of different times in fandom. But I would say like this, and as we mentioned before, the Phantom Menace and Empire Strikes Out, and then the Lego Christmas special, like those are definitely the top tier ones, and this was one of them.
Ben, final thoughts, score out of 10.
Yeah, so just to piggyback off of what Chris is saying, I think that every Star Wars series or anything from now on should not only start with the helmets that we see, but should also, and it should be the version with Server going, "Hey guys, hope you enjoy the program."
Let me just say, Ben, because I know you're trying to get a rise out of me. There's something because the helmets are so bad to begin with. They felt right being parodied in this way. So I have no issue with the helmets in this context. It's just because they're making fun of what is and I don't say this word very often, Ben, but what is objectively one of the
objectively he used the objectively word.
Objectively one of the dumbest things. One of the dumbest things about modern Star Wars. Okay, sorry, man. Continue.
I have been defeated. He used the word. I can't say anything to possibly count.
Ben's about to hit back with, I thought the whole thing was filler. And
God, this is just getting out of hand, guys. Getting out of hand. Okay, back to what was I? Final thoughts. Score out of 10 was something I don't know. Yeah. I really like this, guys. It was really good. Genuinely, I think I've kind of gone over this, but like genuinely, it was fun. It was a lot of really, genuinely some great action. Like I don't usually come into Lego stuff expecting that, but they're like those genuinely like good actiony, thrilling moments. Very well written, well acted. Like, it had everything you would expect from a Star Wars story. Again, I think it's just a credit to the writers and the creators. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing with Star Wars. So I really like the only thing that I have to complain about is that certain things that I really, really liked weren't used as much. A la Darth Jar Jar. Like, I think he's so good. So I hope, like, give Darth Jar Jar a spinoff. Come on, guys, let's do it.
Yeah.
Great. The Misa the Phantom Menace. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's work in progress. But yeah, this was good. Honestly, like a 9.5 out of 10. I enjoyed this. I'm not sure how I rank it with the other series because, like, I'm not like super. They're all so different. You're right, and they're also like, you know, I don't watch them as much as the shows. I think if it was like, oh, I'm gonna watch them all in a row, like I have very fond memories of the Padawan Menace. Like I would like rank that one high, but it's also been a really long time since I've seen it. I need to go back and rewatch it. So, you know, ultimately this one has to rank up pretty high just because it's a complete package. I think they've perfected this Lego Star Wars formula, and they're really putting out some hits now. So I'm looking forward to whatever they do next. They're clearly something's going to happen next. They're coming out with a Marvel Lego special now, so you know they're firing on all cylinders.
All right, yeah, I'll give this one like a 9.75 or something like that. It should be a 10 out of 10, but I've already said that like it just misses the same level of greatness of the holiday special, the Christmas one specifically, because like that one like has surpassed, like, even as it's so good it's not even like just a Lego thing or a Star Wars thing. It's like a Christmas thing for me now. Like I watch that one every year on Christmas Day, every year since it's come out. Like it's that good. Like it's part of the like Christmas fabric now that I almost can't compare anything else to it. But this comes like mighty close. Yeah, like we said, good story. A very nice, you know, like good themes, very funny stuff, great references, something, you know, that is a love letter to Lego and to Star Wars. Down to the fact that Jedi Bob is a main character in it. Yeah. And I love the like bit where he's like talking about his past, and it goes to like being like an old like early 2000s Lego so stop motion thing. It was so good. Yeah, loved it. So yeah, 9.75 from me. All right, actually let's go to the chat here. Brandon asks, have you guys ever seen the Lego movie or the Lego Batman movie? Yes to both are excellent. I think the Lego movie is a genuine like classic animated movie from this century. It's one of the best animated movies. And Dump Truck asks, what's the Lego Star Wars watch order?
That's a great question.
Yeah. I think you watch the Padawan Menace, The Empire Strikes Out, and then I honestly I think you skip to the Christmas special. And then you do the Christmas special, and then I think the next two, like the Halloween one and the summer one, are sort of like optional, and then you jump to this. So it'd be like if there's a trilogy of great Lego Star Wars, it's Padawan Menace, Holiday Special, Christmas Special to be specific, then Rebuild the Galaxy. I think that's the holy trinity.
Well, you know, I am all for the Lego Star Wars machete order.
Oh, okay.
I say start with the Halloween one, and then go to Christmas, and then just do whatever the hell you want.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, technically what Ben is saying there is the correct answer, because they're the Lego specials, so watch them in whatever friggin' order you want. But yeah, the alternate order is to watch The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and then skip The Rise of Skywalker and watch the true Episode 9, which is Lego Star Wars: The Holiday Special.
Naturally.
No, I kid. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about Skeleton Crew. Speaking of Talk Like a Pirate Day, Entertainment Weekly has released some new images from Skeleton Crew, which is coming up, what, Ben, like 74 days at this point?
Let's see. It is coming up in exactly 2 months, 13 days, 23 hours, 4 minutes, and 16 seconds.
Amazing. So one image features Jude Law as his character, whose name
Jode. Just go with Jode.
Jode. His name is
Jode.
Jode. And the kids are kind of in the background. And it seems like with this costume, he stole Nathan Fillion's jacket from Firefly and Billy D. Williams' shirt from The Empire Strikes Back. That's, I think, what happened here.
And he stole Jack Sparrow's gun from the Pirates.
And Jack Sparrow's gun. This is one of those moments. You remember how we were talking about how Star Wars, some of the shows sort of build a box around themselves and say this is what Star Wars is. I look at Jude Law's costume here, and I think they built a box around him and said this is what this costume has to be a Star Wars character, to be like a Star Wars scoundrel. And like it's like Han Solo and Lando combined into one, with like maybe a little bit of like Cad Bane and Poe Dameron like thrown in there. But I don't know. It's not a bad costume. I just think, I don't know, maybe they could have thought outside the box and maybe followed the lead of Lego Star Wars a little bit.
It is it's very scoundrel and very not Jedi. Which there was one comment from somebody. I don't know if it was I don't know where it came from. I heard people talking about it, but I actually didn't see it in the article that Entertainment Weekly released. But it was them talking about, they're going to introduce a new type of Jedi, which I don't know what that means. But we were talking about, is he a Jedi? Is he not? Seems very much like he's a Han Solo Lando type. Like he's literally wearing Lando's clothes. Like this is payback for Lando wearing Han's clothes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, yeah. Cause so Chris Ford says it in the article where he's talking about, they're actually not really talking about Jode or Jude Law. They're talking about Dave Filoni and how Dave Filoni like oversees all the productions and stuff. And because Chris Ford says this, he says, and he, being Dave Filoni, gets both sides of that because he did that with George Lucas. So he gets that thing of, I want to make a whole new kind of Jedi, and then someone being like, okay, hold on, a lot of people have thought about this, let's do it the right way, and so it's helpful. So that's where that quote comes from. And we see in the trailer, right, that Jode can use the Force and the kids call him a Jedi. So like obviously that's what they're thinking about. And we haven't really seen sort of a scoundrel Jedi before. We haven't seen Han Solo becomes a Jedi. In some of the books we've gotten there, but never quite the like Quinlan Voss kind of gets. Yeah, Kanan and Quinlan Voss.
Kanan was like, oh, he's a Han Solo, but also he's a Jedi. Like, but then they just like, okay, now he's a full-on Jedi, which was his story and his trajectory, which made sense for him. But I don't know.
Well, with this character, being then the story taking place in the Mandalorian era, this is probably somebody who's been hiding his Force powers for quite some time. And now that we've seen Luke is starting to rebuild his Jedi Order, Ahsoka's out there, like Sabine is trained to be a Jedi. Ezra has come back to the galaxy, assuming this takes place after Ahsoka. Like there are other Jedi out there, so maybe it's safe for people who have been hiding their Force abilities to start, revealing that they have those talents. And therefore you will get people who were not trained as Jedi the way that Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, even Ahsoka, even Luke to an extent, they weren't trained like Jedi in the traditional sense. And so you'll get, the scoundrel Jedi or the Mandalorian Jedi with Ahsoka, and Grogu to an extent. Like you'll start to get those other iterations of Jedi. So I think that's probably what Chris Ford is alluding to in that quote.
The thing is with Jode, I think they could be interesting I think it's always, the temptation is always there to, if you have a Force user, just give them a lightsaber and now they're a Jedi. Like I liked not really a criticism, but just like that was weird kind of thing in Ahsoka of just like Ezra shows up and Ezra's like, nah, I don't need a lightsaber. I can do this. The Force is my ally. And then literally the next episode, he's building a lightsaber and he's back to being like, which I get. Okay. It's good for action. Like I love seeing Ezra with a lightsaber, but also a Jedi not using a lightsaber is a cool concept.
Yeah.
And I would hope like Jode, if he is a Force user, if he's not a con man or anything like that, I like the idea of just like he's over it. He's not going to use a lightsaber. He's just going to be like, I'll be, he's going to be kind of like a Han Solo type where he's maybe tapping into the Force to fire blaster bolts or fly a ship or, do crazy things. But he's like, I've lived all this time without a lightsaber. I'm not a Jedi. So I don't need that.
Would it be kind of interesting if it's the opposite? If like you said, he's a con man. And he's a different type of Jedi because he pretends to be one, but he isn't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they sort of played with that idea in Obi-Wan, right, with Kumail Nanjiani's character. But he was just a straight up con man. He was just pretending to be a Jedi. He was a classic, Star Wars. He's a bad guy, but with a heart of gold. He's a con man, but with a heart of gold. And maybe you could have like almost the inverse of that. Someone with Force abilities who is actually using them to just be a con man, because that's what you could do. You just go around mind tricking people or just, influencing card games so that you win all the time. Like that could be a lot of fun. That could be really interesting.
Because you have this scenario where you have the Jedi were the ones that were going out and picking up all these kids, taking all these kids in to train them as Jedi. And maybe testing them against their will, maybe against the parents' will, maybe. That's we've seen at least one instance of that. But then going forward of like, okay, the Empire's wiped out the Jedi. There's no one doing this. Well, maybe the Empire was doing some of this. Now the Empire's gone. Now, seemingly, there's a ton of people, maybe millions, if not billions of people out there that have some sort of Force abilities that are just wandering around having normal lives. And like, what happens to them? And like, obviously, you can tell that from a very Jedi-centric story of like, well, it's Luke Skywalker, it's Ahsoka Tano. They're trying to rebuild the Jedi. They're trying to do this. Or you could tell it from a purely pirate scoundrel story of just like, I'm just a dude and I have powers I don't understand. He's like Ezra at the beginning of Rebels. It's just like he's just using these powers. He doesn't really know what they are. I like the idea of exploring that because it is a problem. Now you can use your Force powers. You're not going to seemingly won't get persecuted by the Empire, even though the Empire is having a resurgence now. But I hope that they play with that. I think there's a lot of really interesting things you could do with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I hadn't even considered that. Like we kind of saw a version of that with Ezra right at the beginning. Like that's his starting place. And by the time the first episode is over, he's, on the more traditional Jedi path. But, maybe we get like a whole season of Jode in that kind of, con man sort of role. And again, Ben, what you're saying, like, again, feels like it could also, as much as it could be interesting for this show, could also be an interesting jumping off point for the Rey movie of like, there are people in this galaxy, characters who at that point, it not just has been the 25 years of the Empire's rule. There's been another 30 years where, Luke tried to get things going and then it all fell apart. But there was like, 50 years worth of people who've just been going around with, Jedi potential and not acting on it. And again, like that could be an interesting starting place for a Rey movie of her finding people who are not, your traditional Jedi candidates and going, but there's skill here. She could almost be like Moneyball again, where she's like, I'm not going to go after like the kids here. I'm going to find people who have already started to use their skill a little bit and put together kind of a non-traditional team.
I mean, imagine like there's like, speaking of not just Rise of Skywalker, but 15 years past Rise of Skywalker, there's people that have been born and lived long lives that at that point may be discovering their Force potential because they've had no Jedi Order there to vet them.
Yeah.
I like the idea of just like, maybe Rey's got like a 65-year-old Padawan, because that's they've never been a Jedi before. They've just come in. They're a Padawan. We're used to Padawans being young kids, but no, that's different. That would be really great.
Absolutely. There was another image that was released from Skeleton Crew that showed the pirate gang. Yarr. Among the pirates are the Nikto pirate Vane, who's once again played by Marty Matulis, who originally appeared in The Mandalorian season 3. He's back in one of the least subtle setups for one of the other shows imaginable. Also, Jaleel White, best known for playing Urkel in Family Matters, is back as a pirate character named Gunter. He's got some cybernetics and all that sort of thing. There's Brutus, who's a wolfman, is portrayed by performance artist Stephen Oyoung and voiced by Fred Tatasciore. And there's Grand Pirate Pax, performed by Mike Estes, and Human Woman Chout, played by Dale Soules. John Watts told Entertainment Weekly that the series took inspiration from the classic LucasArts video game Monkey Island, saying, I'm also a big fan of Monkey Island. That's also classic Lucas. So somewhere between Star Wars Pirates and Monkey Island and Pirates, I think we found our sweet spot. This is a cool looking ragtag group.
Yeah, that looked great.
Yeah.
I specifically like the Wolfman. I think
Yes.
It's not enough of those in Star Wars.
Yeah.
I think I forget the species name, but I think it's supposed to be, because a lot of people are like, is it a Bothan? Because anytime there's a hairy dude on screen, it's like, is it a Bothan? But I think it's supposed to be the Wolfman species from the original Cantina. I think
That's what I thought first when I saw it. There's some subtle differences between that and Bothans.
He's really cool looking, and apparently he's going to have a speaking role, which is really cool.
That is very, very cool. So Skeleton Crew coming up early December. Lots to look forward to. Now, before we move on, I do want to highlight one other quote from this article. Where is this here? Chris Ford says, he says, pirates are talked about so much in Star Wars. People would call Han Solo a pirate, and he'd be like, how dare you? And with that in mind, I think we should check in on our poll, our ongoing poll. We've got the early results. The early results are in, and most people would disagree with Chris Ford and apparently Han Solo, because with a commanding 66% of the vote, but the majority, a healthy majority of people are saying that Han Solo is their second favorite pirate in all of Star Wars, again behind Hondo Ohnaka. In second place, we have the Crimson Corsair coming in with 21% of the vote. I think that Force Awakens marketing, that struck a chord with people. People remember that character, even though he's in the movie for like 8 seconds. Sonara San, representing Resistance, coming up with 9% to take third, and Gorian Shard, really speaking to the lack of impact that season 3 of The Mandalorian made on the larger culture, bringing up the rear with a abysmal 4% of the vote. 4% of the vote. There's still,
Come on,
plenty of time left. Polling stations will remain open for another 6 days and 23 hours. So, but that's the early vote is coming in. So if you want to, mail in your ballot, you've still got plenty of time to do so.
Well, Threads. Well, I'll give Threads credit. Gorian Shard is coming in second place.
No way.
Han Solo on Threads. With 8% of the vote. And Sonara and the Crimson Corsair are both tied at 4% at third place.
Damn. These polls, man. These polls. All right, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about the Lando movie. Movie. We haven't had much of an update on that lately. Donald Glover was interviewed by the Wall Street Journal. He, of course, plays Lando in Solo and will play Lando in the series, and is writing the movie with his brother Steven. This is what he said about Lando. He said, I just want it to be fun. As a Star Wars fan myself, I think it's important that it needs to be fun. It's very hard to have fun right now. It's tough because there are very serious things happening, and those are the only things that connect us weirdly. So I get why things are serious, but part of the human experience, I believe, is that we have a responsibility to have an enjoyment of life. And I think that we're lacking that. Star Wars, I love it, but sometimes it can be super serious. Anything that has to do with the Skywalkers is like so serious. Lando, I think the best part about him is that he's a scoundrel, and people can relate to that. He's probably like, man, this war is like whack. I need money, which is what I think people can relate to. I just want it to be fun. This kind of, I think, ties in with what we were talking about with the Lego special, honestly. Like, look, I love a serious Star Wars. You know, Rogue One, Andor, those are some of my favorites. But you can't deny that fun is an essential ingredient in Star Wars. If you go back to that original movie, you go back to A New Hope. 3PO and R2 are hilarious. Han and Chewie are hilarious. Han and Luke are hilarious. Luke, Han, and Leia are hilarious. Like there's like a banter that's going on between them where it's not necessarily jokes as much. Well, there are some like funny lines, but there is like a banter that keeps it light, keeps it fun. That's what makes people want to keep returning to the galaxy, and it's something that to this day, I think of the new Star Wars films, I think The Force Awakens just nails it so perfectly. The relationship between Rey and Finn and Poe and Rey and Han and Han and Chewie and Han and Finn, and like all of that like just plays so well, and it has that like classic spirit of adventure, of Star Wars fun, and I think that's why that movie I think resonated so well and so much, where its follow-ups, well, they are brilliant in some ways and flawed in others, I don't think captured that same spirit in the same way that Force Awakens did. Force Awakens, yes, it had the appeal of Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, and Harrison Ford being back, but like, I remember going to see that movie like 4 weeks after it had come out, and like this was in the town where I went to university. It was like a Tuesday in the afternoon, and like the seniors home had come out, so there are all these people like with their oxygen tanks and stuff going in to see it, and I'm like, that didn't happen for Rogue One, The Last Jedi, Solo, or The Rise of Skywalker. But there was something about The Force Awakens. Yes, it was the reunion, but I think there was something more to it. And I think Donald is hitting the nail right on the head that if they make a Lando movie, it needs to be like the funnest time ever. And that was what my hope was for Solo. And that's why I really like that it was, ironically, the Lego movie guys and Phil Lord and Chris Miller who were originally making it. That was my original hope for, is that we would come away from it like laughing it up and like just having had the best time. Excuse me. And while you come away from Solo having had a great time, love it, it doesn't, I don't think it quite hits the way that I think I wanted it to. And from what Donald is saying here, I think his Lando movie will be more in line with what I was hoping for from Solo. That it'll just be a rip-roar and hilarious good time. And I'm 1000% here for that.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. Where's the announcements about this? We need some more specific announcements, please.
Celebration Japan coming up in April.
Oh my gosh. Wait, 6 more months.
6 more months. They got loads of time for other things. Yeah.
But I really do agree with Donald. I'm like, because I think you read discourse online, you hear from certain fans, and I'm not like dunking on them, because I think everyone approaches Star Wars differently. But I think a lot of people are like, Star Wars needs to be more serious and dark and gritty, and like, if that's your bag, that's fine. If you want Star Wars to be dark and gritty, you have Andor. Like, we have more dark and gritty Star Wars now. That's great. But I think also there is a danger of Star Wars taking itself too seriously sometimes. I think you have a good balance. Like, again, discourse online would lead you to believe everything needs to be like Andor. And I'm like, as much as I love Andor, no, please don't do that. I love the diversity in storytelling that we've been getting. And I love the idea of taking the Lando character, which is a fun character. He's always been fun. Billy D made him fun. Donald made even more fun. Like, taking that and running with it. And Donald Glover's just, I mean, God, the guy's a genius, and like, his sensibility is so great. I can't wait to see. Please make this happen, because I want to see what he has in mind.
Well, there's a reason why the stinger at the end of Rebuild the Galaxy is the Lando Laureate, right? Like, that character is just so much fun, and now you're gonna put him in a situation where he's got Baby Yoda with him. Like, it's gonna be incredible. It's gonna be so much fun. Yeah, well, I had a really like great point that I was gonna make, and I've forgotten what it was. Oh well, I'm excited for this. It's going. I think. Oh yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking about the Acolyte, right? And I think about the last 3 episodes of the show, they're really good. I do really like them, but they're really dark and they're really, really intense. And you think about what's different about those last 3 episodes compared to the first 5. And through those first 5, at least 4 of those first 5, so much of the energy and the sort of the fun of that show is carried by the characters of Jord and Jackie Lecky. And as soon as those 2 characters are killed off, there's a noticeable turn in the tone of that show. And it's not that it isn't good, but it loses some of the lightness. It loses some of the fun. And as much as I love Basil, he can't do it all himself. And they sort of behead Pip for some reason, because Pip was also fun too. Like, yeah, they don't allow the characters to have a lot of fun in those last couple episodes. Not that it should be, not that the story isn't serious and shouldn't be taken seriously. It's just, it's missing that element. I wish I could say that was my original point. I have to give credit where credit is due. Our friend Din made that point originally, and he said it's like if you killed off 3PO and R2. And like, and that's kind of, I think, what happened there is you killed off 3PO and R2, and not only did you kill off 3PO and R2, is you didn't also have Han and Chewie and Han and Luke to also, and Luke and Leia to kind of like keep that balance going. There wasn't that nobody brought any sort of lightness in those last couple of episodes. It was just dark all the time. And dark can be really good, but it's really hard in Star Wars. Not everything can be the last 25 minutes of Rogue One. And even the last 25 minutes of Rogue One ends with hope. Quite literally, hope. So it doesn't end on a dark, dour note. And maybe that's something that was missing from The Acolyte. And something that could have been addressed in a second season, Bob. Anyway.
It's so very true.
Anyway. All right, let's keep moving. Hopefully we'll hear more about the Lando show, or Lando movie, I should say, soon. Here's an interesting note from the Mando verse. Carson Teva, he who was played by Paul Sun-Young Lee, former guest on this very show. I didn't know he had a homeworld. I didn't know. I mean, I guess we knew he had a homeworld, but we didn't know what it was. And lo and behold, it's a pretty famous one. He's from Alderaan.
Dang.
He revealed this in an interview, I think, with Katie Sackhoff. I think this was on Katie Sackhoff's podcast. And he revealed that Filoni and Favreau said to him, Paul says this, he says, Filoni and Favreau just basically said he's from Alderaan. He's like a New York City cop. He's this world-weary kind of guy. Interesting. You know what other character was from Alderaan? I mean, I think it's been clear in the storytelling that Carson Teva has stepped up to fill a role that perhaps was initially intended for Cara Dune. And that was when all that stuff happened, when you think about it from like the story standpoint, was sad because they, in the season 2, the last couple episodes of season 2 of The Mandalorian, they were setting up some real interesting stuff with Cara Dune, including her being from Alderaan. Like that's what that like little Rebel Alliance teardrop tattoo apparently means. And that seemed like that would be something that would be explored in further seasons of The Mandalorian or Rangers of the New Republic. And then, we don't have to rehash what went down, but they had to make some changes. And the New Republic needed a new representative in a lot of these stories. And, they looked, instead of, looking for a new character, they looked at what they already had, and they looked and said, hey, we got this interesting character in Carson Teva, great actor in Paul Sun-Young Lee, great ambassador to the fans. Let's use that. Let's use him. And now it seems like perhaps they'll revisit some of those Alderaan storylines, which makes me wonder if that's like going to factor into like the major overarching storylines. Like if that was something that was planned for the Cara Dune character, and that was just part of her story, and they felt they had to remove that character for whatever reasons. then I think that story can just sort of, fall away with Cara Dune as a character. But instead they seem to be transferring it, or maybe not even transferring it, because maybe it was always planned for Carson to be from Alderaan. He did seem to have some rapport with Cara Dune in that first episode that they're both in. So maybe that was always be the point, but maybe that's something that could factor into whatever Thrawn has planned, or something else that's going on in these movies that are coming up down the line. That could be pretty interesting.
Well, and there's something that I don't think has really been referenced in the on-screen stuff, but it's definitely something that was addressed in the books and maybe even the comics. It was this idea that the Empire not only destroyed Alderaan, but was like, oh, we have to go after and hunt down all the survivors of Alderaan to put the just bury this thing that happened. And the idea that a lot of Alderaanian survivors were fugitives from the Empire. And going back to the season 2 episode where, it was kind of revealed that Cara Dune is from Alderaan. Carson says, I served during Alderaan. He was part of the rebellion at that point. Which is weird. Side note, weird that he didn't mention he's also from Alderaan at that point. That conversation now in retrospect seems a little clunky to me. I don't know what they were thinking at that point, but as we've said, things have changed. So what about that might come back? This, not just the old wound of just the Empire literally destroyed my planet and hunted down my, what was left of my family. And, will that come back in some way? Will the new Empire have something, a beef with the survivors of Alderaan? Because, you have Leia and Carson Teva and a good old Cara Dune, wherever she is. There's still a few of them left.
Oh. It's interesting. That's the destruction of Alderaan is something that's never really been fully explored. And again, if you go back to where we were at the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian, that was something I thought was going to be really interesting to explore with the Cara Dune character, and obviously didn't happen. So there's still story there. There's still potential there. That's what I'm getting at. Anyways, do check out Paul on Katie Sackhoff's podcast, the Sackhoff Show. Pretty good interview. And go back and listen to the interview that he did with us, that he did with me for over on this show, because that was also really good too. If I allow myself to pat myself on the back, that was a really great episode as well, the one that him and I did. All right, so this is exciting. Can you believe it? The Bad Batch is coming back. we're gonna get a 4th season. It's incredible. It's wild. What's
confirmed?
What's that? Oh, it's a comic book series. Oh, well, okay. That's fine too. This is exciting. It is. There's a lot of clickbaity headlines out there that say the Bad Batch is back, the Bad Batch returns, the Bad Batch is here again. But we are getting a new 5-issue comic book miniseries from Dark Horse about the Bad Batch. It's called Star Wars Hyperspace Stories: The Bad Batch Ghost Agents. There's 4 titles in there. That's wild. It's written by Michael Moresi and illustrated by Reese Hannigan. Issue 1 comes out in January 15th, 2025 to be specific. And it looks like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it looks like it might be set within the Clone Wars. This might be a Bad Batch.
Actually, if just taking the cover as it is, it looks like it's not only during Clone Wars, but it's pre-Echo.
Yeah.
If you notice, there's no Echo on this cover. So it appears to be pre-Echo and things. So it's kind of weird that the Bad Batch, their original purpose was to be kind of recurring guest stars in the Clone Wars and be in at least multiple arcs. It's weird it's taking this long to get a comic series about them. Come on. They fit right in the Clone Wars era of Bad Batch, especially works very well, should work very well as a comic book. So like this is great news. Obviously, Tech lives.
He's
Mr.
alive.
Tech
Look,
lives.
he's
He's back.
alive.
He's back.
He's
on the cover.
back. He's back. He's alive. It took all this time, but he's back. Tech is alive. Watch returns. But it's kind of an interesting trade-off, Ben. Like you get Tech back, which is great. Love that. But like you said, you don't get Echo and you don't get Omega in the story. But you get kind of you're going to get to see one of those missions that led to why it was that shows us why it was such a big deal that they showed up when they did in season 7 of the Clone Wars.
I'm just glad. I'm glad that Dark Horse is back making Star Wars comics so we can not get the 18th different Darth Vader comic.
Yeah, really. Very, very exciting. Sticking in kind of the world of publishing or publishing adjacent stuff. This is crazy. Audible, the people who do the audiobooks, out of nowhere today dropped an entire original audiobook about Obi-Wan and Anakin set 3 years after the events of the Phantom Menace. It's called Padawan.
No fanfare.
Yeah.
No announcement. No build up. Just here it is.
And can I say, on the one hand, I love that they did that. They're just like, here you go, have a release. Take that. On the other hand, I'm really pissed off because 3 days ago, I was looking at my Audible account and I went, hey, I've got a credit here. And I'm going to get another credit before the next High Republic book comes out on audiobook, which, by the way, it's been out in print for like a month and a half, but it doesn't come out in audiobook till October 1st. After the next book comes out, I just want to say, stupid. That's a separate rant. I was like, I have a credit here and I'm going to get another one before the High Republic book comes out. Well, I should use it on something. And so I pre-ordered a hockey book. So I don't even get it. I can't even listen to the thing I spent my credit on for another like 6 weeks.
Wow.
I can't. I could have bought, if I'd waited 3 days, I could have gotten this, and then I could have gotten my High Republic book with the other credit, and then I could have just waited like a month and gotten another credit and got the hockey thing about when it comes out. And now I don't. I'm mad.
Wow.
I'm mad at this. It personally upset me with this really fun idea to release a book with no fanfare and just go, here you go. Because that is a fun idea, but it messed up my personal Audible shopping habits. Damn it.
So let's take your mind off of this by talking about the insights we've gotten from this cover on Obi-Wan and Anakin's hairstyles and their progression throughout the canon of Star Wars. What was striking to this when I see this is Anakin clearly looks like Phantom Menace, end of Phantom Menace Anakin with the buzz cut and the Padawan braid. But Obi-Wan clearly looks like Attack of the Clones Obi-Wan. He's already got a beard. His hair is growing almost to, covering the back of his neck. He's got it all slicked back. So it's very clear to me that if anyone had ever had a question of how long had Obi-Wan been growing his hair for when you get to Attack of the Clones, it sounds like right after Phantom Menace, every time that Anakin would go in to get his hair buzzed, Obi-Wan would be like, no, not for me, not for me.
Like on the way home, on the way back to Coruscant from Naboo after Phantom Menace, he's like, oh, I guess I'm just not going to shave and I'm not going to cut my hair for a while. Like, that's what he decided.
It makes me think of, well, one, perhaps like, okay, I'm the master now, so he's not cutting his hair. But then the other thing, maybe it's like a subtle homage to Qui-Gon, because Qui-Gon had long hair and a bit of a beard. So perhaps he's kind of trying to copy Qui-Gon.
Yeah. It could be. I don't know. But like Obi-Wan, so in the Clone Wars, Obi-Wan shaves his head. He shaves his whole face, right?
True.
And by the next week his hair is fully grown back. So I think Obi-Wan's hair grows at an unnatural pace. There we go. And he's actually like constantly at the barber shop. Like he goes in like once or twice a week and they're like, it's like, hey, usual Obi-Wan. And he's like, yes, let's get this over with. I think that's what's going on. And actually, you know what? I think he gets his hair cut by Dexter Jetster. I think he goes in and he goes into the back of the restaurant and Dex just does it for him there. I think that's how that works. I think he just goes,
Dex's Diner and Barbers.
Yeah, he's like cutting Obi-Wan's hair with two of his arms while he's frying up some burgers with his other arms. That's how it works.
Sounds like a health code violation to me, but whatever.
Anyway, so the book itself is it's 3 hours and 57 minutes. It's only available as an audiobook. It's narrated by Kevin Kemp and written by Brian Q. Miller, who has a fairly extensive career writing in comics and in television. I know he wrote some episodes of Smallville back in the day. And I will say, despite my little temper tantrum there, I think actually, if you have an Audible account, I think this is just included.
No, well, there we go.
So
no need for any of that.
Ignore all that other stupidity that I said. If I just, because I was just trying to pull up the details on my phone, and it said add. I was looking to see how much it was going to cost, and it said add to library, and I did, and now it's there.
Maybe that's what only from Audible means. It's like the Netflix for books. Like
maybe
you just have access to it all.
What it's making me realize is I need to listen to this thing right away before they realize that I've stolen it from them. I'm like, oh no, sorry. Hey, you can have it back. I was walking by and I thought it was for free. That's what happened here. Hey, as I turned into a New York gangster from the 50s for some reason. That should be one of the pirates we see in Skeleton Crew. It's that character, whatever that was that I just did. Yeah, excited to give this a listen. And I don't know, it is like, as much as like, it does, like, it is nice to like tell people, hey, this is when this is coming out, so you can plan, and especially if something is going to cost money, people, if they want to save up for it, or build that into their budget for the week, whatever. Obviously, as much as that is important, it is also fun to every now and again just go, hey, screw it, here's a thing, enjoy the thing. And it's fun they did it with a book or with an audiobook. Maybe it'd be fun if they did it with like a animated short sometime. They're just like, hey, here you go, here's a 5-minute Lego short about Sig and Dev, or here's a solitary Visions episode or something. I don't know. Could be fun. Looking forward to giving this a listen, though. All right, what else we got? A little bit of video game news. Let's talk a little video game news. Lauren Miele, I don't know. EA's president of entertainment and technology, Laura, has stated that the upcoming sequel to Star Wars Jedi Survivor will be, quote, the final chapter of Cal Kestis' story. She said, quote, over 40 million times 40. Over 40 million Star Wars fans have connected with Cal Kestis and his arc becoming a powerful Jedi. Respawn is working hard to bring the final chapter of his thrilling story to players. Yes or no? Does Cal Kestis die in Star Wars Jedi 3? No. No, I think this makes sense. Trilogies and Star Wars go together very, very well. And at a certain point, you got to move on and let these characters sort of let them go into the universe to be picked up on and played with by other people. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah. No. That's kind of what I'm thinking of. It's just like kind of letting the original storytellers like tell their story, and then maybe there's room for him to show up, because like they're clearly like the second game is clearly setting up this place like, yes, go off to that secret planet that no one knows about and the Empire definitely can't find you in, and just live there until the new era so you can show up in the Mandalorian one day. Like that I feel like that's what they're setting up here. And I'm not mocking that. I'm all for that plan, if that is the plan. So like, I think let the games play out the story, obviously, because like I think if you put Cal Kestis in anything else and you kind of confirm, oh yeah, he's gonna be around for the Mandoverse, then you're kind of ruining the experience of that third game of like not knowing this. Because there's some crazy, if you've played those games or you've just watched the cutscenes like I have, there's some crazy stuff that happens in those games. Like they don't pull their punches. So, I think going into that game, you can't completely rule out the possibility of like, maybe they will kill off Cal Kestis. Maybe they will go with the dark timeline.
Yeah. Like the first game was like, and I don't mean this as an insult. Like it was a fairly like straightforward, by the book Star Wars story, and it was really, really well told. I really enjoyed the story of it. The second one, just wild. Like it was just crazy. It was so good. And I think this third one, there's a lot of like, now that the expectations are really, really high, but they've pulled it off twice with really good Star Wars storytelling that I'm excited to see where it goes. Like, even though I don't play the games, I feel fairly invested in these characters, having watched the cutscenes and also having read the Battle Scars book that came out between the first and second games. All right. I think that's it for the news for this week. There's some collecting stuff out there, but we don't have to go into that too deeply. Let's get to Ask the SWU. We got a couple of questions from the Discord. We'll start with this one from Vlad Sander, who says, so I have a question about Rebuild the Galaxy. How do you think Ahmed Best felt about returning to a role that caused him to nearly quit the business? As for Skeleton Crew, this is going to be interesting. Certain scenes that we have been given have a major Goonies feel, such as this one. I'm looking forward to the show. He includes a screenshot of the kids investigating kind of like a droid in the dark. Ben, what do you think about Ahmed, his return in Rebuild the Galaxy? Let's start there.
Yeah, I think as I said, like, it was great to have Ahmed back. And I watched some interviews with him, like talking specifically about Rebuild the Galaxy. I think he had a lot of fun revisiting this character. And like, I think he has also played into the theories. He's played with that whole idea of innovative things. Obviously, I think the Darth Jar Jar thing was maybe a little bit, I don't know, a little bit mean-spirited maybe at first. Was just like, we don't like this character, let's make him make sense or whatever else, which is fine if you're doing it in good faith. I think it's just kind of blown out of proportion to the point now where it's become this thing. And obviously it kind of blew up a lot in the lead up to Force Awakens. What if Snoke is Jar Jar? Like we there was a time when we didn't even know what Snoke looked like. So it was like anybody was on the table. And then they still didn't stop anybody from, after we knew what he looked like, to thinking he could literally be freaking anybody. But I like that they visualized it here, and I hope they bring him back. And he seemed to really enjoy doing that, because that's what he was talking about. I think, and the thing is, like, Jar Jar is obviously wacky, but he's also very positive. He's a bright light, and like, how do you interpret that into I'm evil? And I think that's something that maybe that was their reasoning for killing him off so soon. It's just like, it's hard to ride this tightrope between good and bad Jar Jar.
Yeah, and as to how he may have felt returning to the role, obviously he came back to it, and I think over the years, Ahmed Best has perhaps come to. I think his relationship with Jar Jar has evolved over the years. There is a really, really great podcast series that was produced last year or the year before called The Redemption of Jar Jar Binks, and Ahmed is all over that, and he talks very openly and candidly about his experiences. But I think there's another thing that's sort of telling that, again, to speak to the fact that his relationship with the character has evolved, is maybe there was probably a time when playing Jar Jar was kind of painful for him, because remember, in the Clone Wars era, he came back for the first Jar Jar episode. He came back and he did Bombad Jedi. That's Ahmed Best. Then there's like 2 or 3 episodes where Jar Jar is voiced by quote unquote BJ Hughes, who I think we now know to be Phil Lamar. And he sounds very different. He sounds very, very different. But or at the very least, you can tell it's not Ahmed. And I think because for a long time it was a mystery who this BJ Hughes person was. And I think Ahmed let the cat out of the bag that it was Phil, because he, tweeted or said in an interview that Phil stepped up when he emotionally couldn't do it. And so he stepped away from the character and probably, had to do some soul searching and consider some stuff before he was ready to return to it, which he was for later seasons of the Clone Wars. And we get some one of the best Jar Jar episodes or Jar Jar stories, I think, is the season 3 episode Supply Lines, where it's him and Bail Organa on a mission, on a diplomatic mission to Toydaria. And they did such a great job of making Jar Jar silly and goofy and kind of clown-like, but not a total idiot, not a total buffoon. There was some growth, and they maintained the core goodness that Ahmed has talked about in the more recent interviews, where he talks about Darth Jar Jar, how when we hear Jar Jar's voice, there's an inherent goodness in it. And so when he plays Darth Jar Jar, it's a little bit funny to hear this voice that we know is very pure and very good, saying all of these evil things. And that's where a lot of the comedy comes from. So yeah, I don't mean to speak for Ahmed. I don't mean to try and analyze him too much, but I think from what he himself has said, he's been through that journey already, and he's reached a point where he's happy to be Jar Jar again.
Yeah. Okay.
On the second part of the question, Skeleton Crew having a Goonies feel. Yeah, sure, great. I love that.
Seems to be intentional, like especially with Jude Law, was coming out on stage at D23 being like, this is Star Wars, but it's Goonies. And that's definitely that's a touching point with them. So that's cool. I mean, that's really cool. And I think that's something that I think George did. George did with Star Wars, of being taking inspiration from other movies and being like, this is Star Wars, this is this universe, but it's something else. It's bringing in this thing that I like. I think that's what makes really good Star Wars most of the time, is not because we've talked about it, Star Wars, when it's references Star Wars, can get a little redundant occasionally, whereas Star Wars was referencing something else, then it's actually very healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I talked about this when the trailer came out, the feeling that the kids have of oh, we're bored with our day-to-day life, we want to get out there and have an adventure. That's core to A New Hope. That's Luke's story in that movie. That's his starting place. So all of this feels very true to what Star Wars is, without just repeating the same exact story beats with the same exact characters. Next up, we got a super chat from Joel Davis, who says, do you think that with the likes of Sabine and Jude Law's character, Star Wars is going to try and make the Jedi post Order 66 more relatable? Yes. Yes. Go ahead.
I mean, I feel like maybe that's full circle, because if you start, going back to A New Hope, it's the first Jedi you encounter is a farm boy. So I think they're initially they're relatable, and then maybe it's the whole thing with the Jedi Order makes them seem kind of elite. But I don't know. I feel like the core of Star Wars, they're still an everyday person could be a Jedi.
Well, I mean, Sabine to me is perhaps more relatable. Not that she's, a member of this legendary warrior race and has all these skills, but the fact that she's like the worst Jedi ever. She's like the least qualified person to be a Jedi, which is, I feel like if I was in Star Wars, that would be me. I would be the least qualified person to be a Jedi. I would want to be a Jedi, and everyone would tell me, no, you're like the least force sensitive person in the entire galaxy. And like that's an interesting idea. And just like I know it maybe screws with some of the lore of just like, oh, well, either you're force sensitive or you're not. And I think putting that gray area in there, just like, well, everybody's kind of got it, but you really have to work on it if you're not going there. And like I like Sabine's story. And I also like it from the kind of potentially the opposite perspective of someone who has it, who is naturally skilled and can just kind of use it. Maybe someone like Joe, but is someone who maybe just doesn't care, is kind of the Han Solo type. Like if Han Solo had the Force, would he be a Jedi? I don't think he'd be a great Jedi. Even if he wanted to be a Jedi, he would just be like, whatever. I have the Force. I can float objects and, whatever. I don't care about this.
Yeah. I think to sort of get back to the point, or the question, like I do think there is going to definitely be an effort to make the Jedi more relatable because, we've seen where they come from. Like the Jedi of the prequels aren't necessarily the most relatable characters, and the Jedi of the Acolyte are definitely not the most relatable characters. Yord, we love him. He's funny as can be, but part of that humor comes from he's not very relatable. Soul, and a lot of those other Jedi, like not the most relatable bunch. Really, again, only Jecki kind of fills that role. So like again, we've seen where they've come from. We saw them at their most like insular, only looking inward kind of version of them, and now they have to, by definition, look outward to find new candidates. So they have to be more relatable. And to your point earlier, Chris, like, yeah, the first Jedi that we meet are the farm boy and the Jedi Master who's been, in exile for 20 plus years, having to live amongst the people. So that is definitely the most relatable the Jedi have ever been on screen, I think. And even if you then go to the next movie, Empire Strikes Back, Yoda is intentionally unrelatable. Like that's the point of the character, is that it's supposed to be difficult to relate to because he's this weird frog guy who talks backwards. And for the first 10 minutes that we know him, he seems insane. And that's like a lesson in the movie. That's a theme and an important part of being a Jedi, is to, see the value in everybody, not to, judge someone not to judge a book by their cover. And so, but yeah, so I definitely think there's going to be an effort to make the Jedi more relatable. And also I think we're going to get a lot more Jedi characters, and it's hard to have a main character of your story be unrelatable. Like, again, some people can do it, some stories can do it, but not many can. And so just from that factor alone, the characters are going to have to be more relatable. All right. Final question, final submission for this week. Jesse B in the Discord says, while I enjoyed Rebuild the Galaxy, I personally rank it towards the bottom of the Lego specials. Still working on an overall ranking. My question for tonight is this: what is your Lego ranking? And question 2, if another production company / studio was granted permission to make a Star Wars series, which ones would you like to see make a Star Wars? We've seen the success that Visions has had, so something like that. Or would you go for a live action studio? I think we already did our Lego rankings earlier. So another studio specifically to make a Lego, or not a Lego, to make a Star Wars.
Well, for the world, I think Studio Ghibli would be nice. But for me personally, I would want A24.
Sure, yeah.
But it would cause a riot.
Yeah, A24 is making great stuff, but that'd be an interesting. That's an interesting crossover. Yeah, very different
tone,
different ideologies of how to make stuff. You had Bob Iger on one side of the strike saying, these actors and writers want too much money while I fly around on my private jet. And then you had A24 go, we're still making stuff because we agreed to the terms that were offered to us. We didn't even counter. We're just like, yes, we'll go with that, so we can still make movies.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I hope they're making more money. I don't know if they are. But
I don't know.
They are.
My favorite movie of this year, still to date so far, is I saw The TV Glow, which is an A24 production, and
I gotta see that.
Excellent. Yes, Chris, I think in particular, I think you should watch that. I think you.
Yeah,
really
I mean, A24 is my vibe for movies outside of Star Wars, typically. So,
yeah. Oh, it's like a psychological horror thing.
Love it. Yeah,
that which is not usually my bag, but I liked it, and it also like, I think like there's a part of it that revolves around finding friends who like the same TV show that you do. And I found that I was watching that's what made me watch the movie in the first place, because I saw the poster and was like, oh, scary, not for me. And then I saw the trailer. I'm like, that story's a little bit relatable. I'll watch that. And then there's some other themes and stuff that I think everybody can enjoy. But again, when I was watching it, I was like, I need to remember to tell Chris about this. And I didn't.
Yeah, thank you. I've not heard of that.
I didn't until just now.
They make a lot of movies now. A24 is like second to Disney with the amount of movies they put out every year.
Oh, yeah. They make a lot of stuff. So yeah, A24, sure. Ben, do you have an answer?
I'll stick with the kind of animation theme Jesse had going there and say I am a big fan, and I've loved what, weirdly, I haven't loved everything Sony has been doing with Marvel, but I've loved what they've done with animation and Marvel and the Spider-Verse movies. And I think those are superb films. They've done so much to like bring animation into the foreground and being like, animation is a medium too. It's not a genre. It's just another medium to make a movie. And this is as good as literally any other movie, if not better than most live action movies. And so like the idea of like that, even just that style of animation, which is just mind blowing, that with something with Star Wars, I think would be phenomenal. I don't know how that would work, but we're dealing with what ifs here. And if Sony Animation wanted to come in and do a Star Wars animated movie, which I would love for Lucasfilm to do a Star Wars animated movie. That's what I've been bagging for forever. I think that would be amazing. But I think different styles, and we've had this trend in animated movies where we had recently it was The Last Wish, the Puss in Boots movie, which was I suppose I didn't see it, but I heard it's amazing. This kind of different styles of animation that are really cool. I think just expands everything and presents these stories in completely different ways that you never imagined. So I think Star Wars is doing great in live action and animation. But animation I think is the most like we're kind of in the same animation lane of just like 3D animation. It's beautiful, but some more stylized stuff would be good too.
Yeah. Weirdly, I'm also going to recommend an animated studio, which I feel like is not where I usually would go with this. But I recently, for the first time, saw the movie Coraline, which I had never seen, but it was back in theaters, I think, for its 15th anniversary. And my favorite like little independent theater near me was showing it, and they were showing it in 3D. So I was like, okay, sign me up. I'll go see that. And I went and saw it. I absolutely adored it. And I've been, and so I looked up who made it, and it's a studio called Leica. And I've been eating up their stuff since then. So I'd love to see them at the very least get like a Visions episode. I think they do something really interesting and unique with Star Wars. So that one, I don't know, that one actually feels like it could be possible if you had people at like Sony and A24. God love it, but they're like we're fantasizing, but that's never gonna happen. That's never gonna happen. I could see like some people at Lucasfilm going like, we want to make like a really interesting animated Star Wars movie, and going to Leica or going to Studio Ghibli and saying like, let's do something. Let's combine our styles and do something incredible. Or let's you do your style, but with a Star Wars story, and then do something really incredible. That is not necessarily something I see on the horizon as like a full movie, but is something that could happen. It feels like it's plausible. Certainly both of those companies should be doing Visions episodes. I know Ghibli did one like little mini thing for the anniversary of The Mandalorian or something, which is cool. But like, you know, a full Studio Ghibli Star Wars movie would be insane. So why not? All right, there we go. Some good questions this week, folks. Good questions. If you want to submit questions for next week, make sure you join our Discord. Or if you're listening live, you can jump in with a super chat and we will we'll respond during the show. But I think that is where we are going to begin to wrap things up for this week.
All right. Thank you so much for watching and listening to the show. We'll be back with another episode, same time, same place next week. In the meantime, follow us on Instagram's exciting new text-based app Threads at the SWU. Dominic, thank you so much for hosting tonight.
It was my pleasure as always. I was very glad to be back on the show. I'm glad I could be here to talk about the Lego Star Wars special that we got. And boy, it's always a lot of fun. Real quick, one last check-in on the poll over on the Twitter. Han Solo has increased his lead over everybody else, now coming in with a 68% to be everybody's second favorite Star Wars pirate. Crimson Corsair holding strong at 20%. Sonaris Sand dropping a little bit down to 8%, and Gorian Shard bringing up the rear still with 4% of the vote. Still a week to go in voting. We will check in next week with how that went. But yeah, great fun being on the show. Can't wait to do all this again in 7 days' time.
And you can follow Dominic on social media at DominicJ25. Ben, thank you so much for hosting too.
Yar, mateys. Me having a great podcast, and we can't wait for the next one. Arr.
What the hell was that?
I've only been a pirate for 5 minutes. Give me a break. Arr.
Oh my goodness. There's so much more of that over at Ben Hart with no E on social media. That's all it is. Check it out. Check out all the other shows on the Star Wars Underworld Network, Raeside, Iron Cannon, Tales from Me on the Galaxy Tractor Beam, and more. And also check out the SWU Network Discord. The link is in the description. That's where you can get all that awesome stuff like Nubs, not the Darth Nubs, the normal Nubs. They're watching his show over at the SWU Network Discord. And then make sure as you're on your way out of here, subscribe and leave a review if you're listening, or subscribe and leave a comment if you are watching. All right, that's it. We're out of here. For Ben and Dominic, my name is Chris, and may the Force be with you.
It's all right.